You open the app without thinking. That is just what you do now. And within 4 seconds, you saw someone's vacation, someone's body, someone's salary reveal, someone's perfect apartment. And something happened in your chest. Not quite sadness, not quite anger, something quieter, something that whispered, "Why not me?" You didn't choose to feel that. It arrived on its own, uninvited, automatic. And here is the strange part. That feeling is not a flaw in your psychology. It is one of the oldest, most precisely engineered systems in the entire human brain. It has been running for 2 million years, and it was never designed for the world you are living in right now. This is the story of social comparison, and the real answer to why you can't stop doing it is far stranger than you think. To understand where this begins, you have to go back. Not decades, not centuries. You have to go back to the African savanna, roughly 2 million years ago, where your ancestors lived in groups of roughly 150 people. That number is not a guess. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent years analyzing the relationship between primate brain size and social group size. What he found was remarkable. The larger the neocortex relative to the rest of the brain, the larger the stable social group that species could maintain. For humans, that number capped out at around 150. Dunbar called it the cognitive limit of social tracking. Today we call it Dunbar's number. 150 people. That was your entire world. You knew every face, every voice, every history. And in that world, knowing exactly where you stood relative to everyone else was not vanity. It was survival. Because in a group of 150, your rank determined everything. It determined how much food you got when food was scarce. It determined who you could mate with. It determined whether the group protected you in a crisis or left you behind. Your position in the social hierarchy was, in the most literal sense, the difference between life and death. So your brain evolved to track it. Obsessively, constantly, automatically. Psychologist Leon Festinger first formalized this in 1954 in what he called social comparison theory. His core argument was deceptively simple. Humans have a fundamental drive to evaluate their own opinions, abilities, and circumstances. And when objective measurements are not available, they evaluate themselves by comparing themselves to other people. Festinger did not think this was pathological. He thought it was functional, rational even. Comparison, in the environment it was designed for, gave you real data about where you stood and what you needed to do to survive. Here is where it gets interesting. Festinger also identified something subtle inside the comparison drive. It was not random, it was directional. When you wanted to feel better or more competent, you compared downward. You looked at people who had less, who struggled more, who ranked below you. When you wanted to improve, to push yourself, you compared upward. You looked at people who had more, who achieved more, who ranked above you. Your brain had a strategy. It used comparison as a calibration tool. Adjust, adapt, climb. That strategy worked perfectly for 150 people. Then something broke. You do not live in a tribe of 150. You live in a world of 8 billion people, and a smartphone connects you to the most curated, most aspirational, most optimized slice of all of them simultaneously. Your brain did not get the update. It is still running the same ancient code, and that code, dropped into the modern information environment, is producing results it was never designed to handle. Psychologist Thomas Musweiler has spent decades studying the mechanics of social comparison. What his research revealed is that comparison is not something you consciously decide to do. It is preconscious. It happens before your awareness catches up. Before you have formed a thought, your brain has already begun benchmarking the person in front of you against your internal model of yourself. You are not choosing to compare. You are the last to know that comparison has already occurred. And what your brain is comparing against is not the average person. That is the part that will genuinely unsettle you. On social media, the algorithm does not show you the average. It shows you the peaks. The most beautiful version of someone's body on their best day, in the best light after 2 hours of editing. The salary reveal from the person whose circumstances, connections, and timing you do not have access to. The relationship that exists only in its publicly performed form. Your brain receives this information and files it as representative data, as a realistic picture of where everyone else stands. Because for 2 million years, the people you could see were the people in your tribe. And what you could see was real. Now the people you can see are infinite, and almost none of it is real. But your comparison system does not know the difference. A landmark study by Ethan Cross and colleagues at the University of Michigan tracked Facebook use and well-being over time. The findings were uncomfortable. The more participants used the platform passively, scrolling, observing, comparing, the worse they felt. Not immediately, gradually, a slow accumulation. Each individual moment of comparison felt small, but the system never turned off. And the cumulative effect was a persistent, low-grade erosion of how people felt about their own lives. Your life was not worse. Your apartment was not smaller. Your body had not changed. Only the reference point had shifted, and that is all it takes. Festinger noticed something else in his original research. He called it unidirectionality of drive. When you compare upward and feel behind, the natural response is to want to close the gap, to improve. That impulse sounds healthy, and sometimes it is. Upward comparison in the right dose with the right target can motivate real action, but only when the gap feels closable, when the distance feels realistic, when the person above you is a plausible next version of yourself. The problem is that the modern comparison environment does not give you plausible next versions. It gives you extremes. It gives you outliers. It gives you the top fraction of a percent of 8 billion people, presented without context, without struggle, without the 10,000 days of failure that preceded the moment being shown to you. And when the gap feels unclosable, the system does not produce motivation. It produces something else. Psychologists call it self-evaluation threat. You might call it that feeling in your chest. And here is the twist that changes everything. The comparison is not actually about them. It never was. From the beginning, from the savannah, from the tribe, from the first time your ancestor looked around the fire and noticed who had more. The comparison was always about you, about calibrating your own self-concept, about answering a question your brain asks without words, constantly, beneath the level of conscious thought. The question is, am I enough? Am I safe? Do I matter here? Those are not Instagram questions. Those are survival questions. 2 million years old. Wired so deep into your neural architecture that no amount of intellectual awareness fully silences them. But awareness changes something. Research by Kristin Neff at the University of Texas has shown that the antidote to destructive social comparison is not more willpower or more discipline or a harder internal critic. It is something that feels counterintuitive to a brain optimized for status tracking. It is self-compassion, the deliberate, practiced recognition that struggle, inadequacy, and imperfection are not signs that you have fallen behind. They are signals that you are human, that you are exactly as human as every other person in that tribe of 8 billion, most of whom are feeling that same quiet whisper looking at the same screens. The comparison drive does not disappear. It was not designed to. But when you understand what it is, an ancient calibration system running in an environment it was never built for, it loosens its grip. Just slightly. Just enough. Because the question your brain is actually asking is not whether your apartment looks like theirs, or your body looks like theirs, or your life has reached the same coordinates as theirs. The question is whether you are enough, whether you belong, whether you matter. And that question was never going to be answered by a stranger on a screen. You opened the app without thinking, and something happened in your chest. Now you know exactly what that something is. 2 million years old, still running, still trying to keep you safe inside a tribe that no longer exists, in a world it was never designed to navigate. The feeling did not lie to you. It just got lost. If this video helped you in any way, even just a tiny bit, hit the like button. Genuinely, it means a lot, and it helps this reach more people. Subscribe if you want to stick around. I make videos like this every week, psychology and behavior. Drop a comment. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the whole thing. It means more than you know.